welcome to the latest patch of the Verse project. Now, this video is going to be edited slightly, but I'm going to leave plenty of meat on the bone, showing you the good, the bad, the otherwise, and it's going to be long form, so be sure to use the chapters if you want to jump around to get certain things, and would ask, if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so, and thank you to my long-term subscribers for putting up with me. Now, this is Verse Project's Stage 4 update that came out on February 20. And you'll note that there's still the 3 ships, the Badger, the Adalia, and the Harbin, which is kind of a combination of civilian ship, military ship, and industrial ship. However, there's a 4th thing that looks like a ship over there, just past our indie fella here. And what that is a mining piece of equipment. So it is not a ship, to my knowledge. It is a deployable that you would, I'm assuming, put on the planetary bodies like the moon of the solar system, such as Lunar, and most likely onto asteroids in the future. Although that is me speculating. It is not. It is very blatantly obvious the goal of the upcoming patches is to work towards the moon, and you'll see plenty of that, or you can jump ahead to the chapters. You can get super close now. You can get to within 80 kilometers of the moon of Earth, Luna, and check it all out. The detail level has been upgraded, and it is quite beautiful. I'm going through this weapon area because on my first video, I covered this area, and I regretfully did not go through the weapons of the ships. I will note that in this stage 4, there is the initial PvP with a very basic tracking. So like you know, your lead blip, I guess you could call it the circle that you shoot at, and all 3 ships do have unique weapon systems, different types and such that you saw hanging there on that centerpiece on display. I did not test the PvP in this game. Probably in my next video I will. And I'm hoping that by the time I do, it'll be a good, fun thing, at least in 1v1s. And ideally, from what I've seen from the small startup development team, some of their video posts were discussing having larger ships. So I'd love to see like a 2 or 3 crew ship in combat and such. And that, I feel like that would really test the systems. However, so you can see this mining vehicle, this MFB1. It's an extractor and it's deployable, and you'll note the significant amount of storage on board. So 300 kilograms of storage and a transfer rate of 5 kilograms a second. If it's anything like the storage on the industrial vehicle, there's those containers that would be on the top sides, and it would be assumed that a ship would have to come up, or another type of device, maybe ground-based, that would extract from the extractor its information. Now, as we kind of go through this vehicle, I did spend a lot of time going around it. I did like the lighting that is from the top pointed downwards. I feel like it should have used a little more lighting right where the extractor is, so if you have to work on it, it's a little safer and easier to see. And I did note that there is this control panel. The control panel is currently a placeholder. However, it gives you some hints of how you would operate this. You can see the up-down buttons. I tried the F keys and the E keys and everything else on this. You can also see there's a sending capsule button, which is interesting. So this, and see the undocking button and such. You could have a situation where you're able to attach a vehicle to this to load up the cargo of this extractor, and then you would leave this extractor in place. And if other players or NPCs or something don't mess with it, it slowly but surely makes more resources. Maybe also they might, it's just me speculating again, but maybe it'll go the planet side route where these are neutral devices and people can kind of just move up and take them or not. That would certainly add a lot of excitement to any kind of PvP. If you have these contested devices that are all over the moon and, you know, of the area, and you're constantly contesting and dealing with each other to get these resources. I don't know, but at any rate, this is a nice little teaser of the future, and I guess we'll see what they're starting with. If anybody has heard anything, please feel free to put it in the comments. I'll be sure to try to boost that. I will note here, I went to my normal elevators, which if you're starting from the start point of this free demo, you can go to the right and it's there. and both sets of elevators do not function. So I was like, oh no, not the elevator issue. I'm sure people certainly can make some examples of like Star Citizen and other projects that are much bigger, that have elevator issues and transportation issues of getting players to their ships. It is quite it's quite funny. But in this case, there are two sets of elevators. There are elevators on the side that I'm on now. So if you start at the, you basically make a U-turn to the right to come to these. When you load in, but there's another set of elevators to the left. Now, my first instinct when I had that issue was, what if I just go and spawn a ship? I know I'll pull out the Harbin and retrieve the ship and have it assigned to a hangar, and then that'll allow me to get to the elevators. Maybe this was like some type of, there's the outlaw roster for the PvP and such. You can see I haven't done anything on that. Nobody's available for that, I guess, right now on this server anyway. These servers are shared. It's rather small servers, but they are shared with other players. I do see them running around occasionally. You can see hangar 4C there. So put a hangar in, went over to the elevators, no luck. However,
owner of the ship Adalia, H363.
What I would say about this situation is that players may have issues with people that are logging in, jumping into random elevators or following them onto their elevators, and then you know, kind of trying to grief or block their access to the ship, trying to grab their ship, whatever. I'm curious how that is going to be handled in the future. Obviously, this is extremely early project, so that's not going to be an issue at this point. Everybody I've run into has been friendly, or at the very least just doing their own thing, and they don't give a dang what I'm doing. And I'm perfectly fine with either case. It is nice when you have a community that's very active and chatterboxing and stuff, and then there's other folks that are just kind of doing their own thing. You leave them alone, they leave you alone. But in this case, the elevators were not playing along. So I said, okay, I got to figure something out. And that's when I discovered that there's another set of elevators. If you load in, instead of hanging a hard right U-turn, you make a hard left U-turn, down the steps. And the first set of elevators that you find are active, at least in this stage 4 update. Now, this could have been fixed on the back end by the devs. I don't know. You know, maybe they restart the servers and they don't have an issue anymore, but at least as of this recording, what I found was that this elevator was the one's functioning, and that was on multiple servers to my knowledge. I switched servers, and you're going to see why in a few moments. Anyway, elevators take you over, and there is the civilian vessel, the Harbin. Now, what is interesting to me is that this has not changed the hangar. I'm kind of looking around because I mentioned this before, that I would like to see a preview of how cargo will be handled, even at a most basic level, like say a placeholder piece of item or two right there would be nice, and then a way to transition that to the station. Yes, I know there's only one working station and there's only one point of interest. However, being able to just see how that will function, you could do with a one station location. One of the coolest things about the Harbin is the door. So when you close the door, when it's working, that might be on me. So I was a little rusty on these, to say the least. But when you close the door, my goodness, look at the size and scale of that thing. It's mind-blowing on that arm. So location is the same deal. You hold F, you get in the seat. You press F, you get on the seat, and then you can use your free look to get over to the screen. And I'll tell you what I had on my mind. I gotta go see Lunar. I'm being told that it was higher resolution. You can get close to it now. You're not hitting an invisible wall right when you try to leave the station area. It's just so close. Look at that, 4,200 plus kilometers away. You almost reach out and touch it. So, what are we gonna do? We're gonna lock on. We're gonna leave Holster Station and have a good time. Now, as a reminder, you hold down the S key to undock. You can see right there, that's the undocking mechanism in place. The little arms go away. You do not go forward. You do not go forward. You hold down the S key to reverse out. It is still not flipping and burning you that way. It is still not loading the ship upside down so you can just leave. It is literally in this way. I use the V key for the free look, so if you haven't seen my other video, I'll include it in the cards for the first video, which shows a lot more of my trial and error, and you'll see that it works out for me. On this first flight back, I could have hit V and then spun it with my middle mouse button by holding the middle mouse button and swinging my camera, but it worked out just fine nonetheless, because I trust that the hangar has the bottom of it is open, and I'm not moving that quick anyway. Now in this game there is no quantum or free or FTL or spin up drive. However, ships do go very, very fast. Just for this update, so this is the 4th update, they are adding in ridiculously fast speeds, I think, for debugging and also to assist with getting to places quicker. Servers are not amazingly consistent. Like, I mean, I had one issue you'll see in a little bit. You see at the end of the video, but if you're going to have sessions where you want people to get in and out in 30 minutes to an hour or something like that, it makes sense to have them be able to travel at high speed so they can get those experiences in those windows. And then if the server has there's too many people trying to flood the server because it's a brand new update, they can do it. But you'll know, I'm clearing the station. Note all those antennas and all those other pieces of equipment and those orbiting bodies around the station. I need to clear those, because just because I'm going fast doesn't mean I won't hit them. So just like the invisible walls of Blue Death, there's also, well, they're invisible until you get too close to react if you're going too fast. Anyway, I also need to stay clear of the station itself and objects, or I will hit them at very high speeds, and that won't be very good for me. So I have my locked on target, and I start moving towards Earth's moon. And I will say that to me, the speed you can do is ridiculous. But again, it's in testing. I think they'll probably obviously find something between what it was previously and what this is, and find a happy medium. For reference, this is a very short distance though in the solar system. So Sol is it may not be the biggest solar system, and I'm sure anybody, if I have the nerve to say that, I'm sure in the comment section would light up with that. But Sol is not a tiny place, and especially when you leave Earth and you leave its moon, trying to even get to Mars is a considerable longer distance. I mean, exponentially larger distance than going from Earth to the moon. It is a considerable distance, and this station is not that far from Luna, and it's already, you can see how long it takes even with extreme speeds. I think that my problem here is that the experimental speeds, when you just saw that happen, broke the ship. So what you'll see on my next attempt, so just to clarify, I died, I left the server, came back, fully closed this game, came back, and I decided this go around I'm going to test attempting to bring the ship in from the hangar, which it should be able to do no problem. And I'm going to do the Harbin again. For the record, you can use any of the 3 ships, so if you want to really get an eye and feel for the industrial ship, if you want to get a feel for the Badger, the combat vessel, that kind of thing, you can do that. You absolutely can. I like the windows on the Harbin, the civilian vessel. I really like the look and feel of this ship. All 3 have their place, I think, and I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more ships so people have a ton of variety to play with. And there goes the door again, and we're locked in. So let's give this a second attempt of getting to the new location, where we're going to be in extremely close orbit of the moon. And remember, you can see at the bottom of the screen that hint to hold S to undock. This go around, I am going to spin the camera. So, hopefully, yep, there we go. So, you'll note the lights, you'll note all the systems. Yeah. And I'm going to attempt to do it again, but this time I'm going to pulse the high speed. So my thought was, I think that if you go some extreme speed, and remember, I didn't slow down, so the G-forces, I guess, shouldn't have applied, but if you're going some abnormally high speed, it probably has an impact. So why don't I just go to that giant orbital body and run over there? Ah, there it is. Just to completely do the same kind of test from the ground up, I decided to do the free look, grab the screen, space to select the moon, and now I'm targeting Earth's moon inside this area. So again, the distances in the solar system are extreme. So as the modeling of Luna and Earth are completed, it's going to be a little more interesting as we move beyond these locations. And the extreme heat and the extreme cold, it will be fascinating to see what you can and can't do. Can you EVA near Mercury? You know, can you, how much fuel will you need? Can you slingshot around orbital bodies to make it so you can pulse your fuel to get out to even the furthest locations? And that's fascinating to me. This is again, I've said this last game, I said this the last video, and I'll say this again. To me, this is what space sims should be doing, is having their own niches, their own areas, filling out the genre. Space simulation is a very, very small pool of games, and startups like this are absolutely amazing projects to me because they fill out something that I think everybody's looking for. It's like as if saying, oh, there should only be one real-time strategy game, one RTS. That's impossible. That's silly. Or dare I say it, FPS. There'd be pitchforks. And I think that's the way I'd love to see space sims kind of get filled out, is that, to me, this is like early Expanse, the Expanse type worlds feel, mixed with their own flavor of what they're trying to do with this project. And that's why I admire the startups teams, what they've done so far. And I love the fact it's completely free and I get to check it out for nothing. That's awesome. And you can too. The link in the description for their project. I get nothing from them. I barely know them. And this is it. So, in general, this game to me has a lot of promise. It's obviously extremely early, but it's playable and it's free. Cool. Well, let's get on with it. What exactly am I trying to do right now in this game? Well, I'm terrified that if I go too fast, too hard, I'm gonna break apart again and die. And I worked to get out here. You didn't see it take too long, to be fair. There's very little. Once again, I am editing, but there's very little. It seems like this is the kind of thing they really show a fair take, good and bad. And I am flying on the what I guess you would call the dark side of the moon. So there's like basically two settings to the moon. You're either in the sunlight or you're not. And I am not in the sunlight currently. So you can see the detail of everything is extremely, extremely minimal. And interestingly, even in the daylight, because of the way the atmosphere and the size and scale of the moon is and the way the craters are, it is, and the regolith itself that the moon is made out of on its surface, it's extremely hard to get your bearings and tell how far away things are. So the detail level is bad. And that's not their fault, the development team. That is literally how it is. And so I'm saying, well, if I'm going to admire this, I need to at least get to the sunny side. And that is what my goal is at this very moment. So also, one of the interesting things is there are some very, very light orbiting mechanics going on. So added to this patch, they have the ability to, as you get closer and closer, you are actually in the thrall, the pull of Luna, and if you turn off your engines, you'll start being pulled to the surface slowly but surely as you lose. Don't forget, if you turn your engines off, you're still moving forward. You're going to eventually retrograde that and lose more and more, and then eventually you will hit the 80 kilometer marker. And if that did not exist, you'd eventually crash into the surface. So what is interesting is there have been some times in history where we're not quite sure if something crashed into the moon eventually after a successful project. Far back as 2021, there were suggestions that the Eagle ascent stage was still possibly in orbit, or at least parts of it. So when the Apollo missions went up on their crewed adventures onto the surface, they would come back on only the top part of the LEM. So the Lunar Excursion Module's bottom would stay with its fuel loads, and then the top part would go up on its own, a lighter load with less equipment, and that higher part would then meet the command module. It would dock with the command module in orbit, close to probably where I'm at right now. And then they would leave that ascent stage in place, and the implication was that it would continue to orbit, eventually fall into the moon, and then crash into it. But there is some examples of gravimetric studies and some reflections that they're seeing that suggest that it may actually be still around. And they've been asking for some time to send some telescopes to point at it to confirm if it is or it is not still orbiting, interestingly. It's a piece of history. And as I go past the moonrise here, this beautiful, beautiful thing here is starting to show what I was talking about. The detail on Luna is incredible, despite you not being able to judge how far away it is without tools and sensors that we of course have some of. There is an incredible amount of detail in those craters as the sun is absolutely burning across the entire surface and illuminating it very well. So if you were operating on here, you would want to be on the sunny side if you were wanting to be seen and have a safe method, and you'd probably want to be on the dark side at that moment in the lunar night, which is many days. It's 14 days long, and very cold, with your engines and all your equipment turned off, with your lights turned off as much as possible if you didn't want to be seen. It will be really interesting to see PvP and PvE content over time. They develop. Will it be, will there be these systems that are put on the surface that can fire up at you, and can you defend locations, attack locations? As I mentioned earlier, that mining extractor, will that be a contested device, or will that be something players bring, deploy, or will you escort NPCs that have it? Maybe something that simple. Who knows? You can see the lighting effects as the craft itself here, the Harbin, is blocking the sunlight and creating a shadow effect. It's not the greatest shadow effect, but it certainly is pretty cool looking. And I gotta tell you, they did a great job on Luna itself. You can see a lot of the things that this moon brings, and a lot of the challenges to landing on it. These huge craters and boulders and such. Once again, back to crewed craft that have gone down there. There have been many that have had to make adjustments on the fly, most famously the Eagle from Apollo 11, that had to make last-minute adjustments and do the equivalent of trigonometry to figure out if they had enough fuel to go past a boulder field that was next to a crater and then land on the other side of a crater, all as an audible. Additionally, we have uncrewed craft that have also had issues and crashed due to not being able to figure out the edges of a crater, and we wish them luck in the future with their projects. I think as we learn more about the moon and all of its many things that we can get from it, I think there will be a lot more projects and a lot more technology to map the moon dramatically down to such a level that is nearly impossible to have an issue with that, short of a malfunction on the craft itself. Guess we'll see in the future. Now, itself, to me, this represented of what I was hoping for patch 3 to have, so stage 3 patch, to have this experience where you could at least get close to this orbital body. I think it's smart of them to go with this instead of Earth, because Earth has a lot of atmospheric effects. Earth has a lot of things where people can start comparing it to real places or using Google Earth or something, and talking about even clouds and things like that. I mean, that's going to be incredibly difficult to do. I don't know how close they're ever going to let it go and where you're going to go. I would, if I was them, I would just have a station above Earth and just make it the primary station for the whole solar system. Maybe a few, from different companies, governments, whatever, a mix of all that, and just call it a day. And the Earth's just something nice to look at outside the windows, at least in the short term. You can see it hanging out there. I do have the settings on the highest settings. This is a 4070 Ti running through 7800 X3D CPU and a 64 gigs of RAM, just to give you some type of groundwork to get an idea of where I'm coming from. I wish I had the 9800. And you'll start seeing the blue wall of death starting to appear. However, I ain't no quitter, so I've died once already for the cause. Let me see if I can make this work. Preferably not die, but and it got me thinking, maybe I can just land on the blue wall of death. If I travel slow enough, is it really that dangerous? Or is it insta-kill you, And I started getting experimental. So I know that the main line is at the 80-kilometer point. But as I'm looking at this number and I'm getting closer and closer to the blue wall of death, what I'm thinking is, that ain't saying 80. So something's going on here, right? So what I find out is that the 80-kilometer point is below the blue wall, below it. So there's essentially a soft warning zone they've added, and then beyond that is the nearest thing. I go along here. This is going to sound silly, but I don't know that yet, so I'm just kind of looking and getting interested in, like, is there an opening in the wall, essentially? Can I make a move here? Because I'm not really trying to land. I'm more just trying to show you an experience of how it'll feel in this type of game, and maybe get some of that experience for myself, over time. So I realized that this is kind of a futile effort. There's this thing surrounding the entire planet, Terry body. So if I'm trying to do something, I'm gonna have to make a play and just test out what this wall is like. And I started thinking, well, if I'm gonna hit this wall, maybe I can just like land on it, get some shots through it, or test out, so to speak. Here's how it would feel to attempt to start landing. When you go into landing mode by pressing N, you get this landing camera by pressing V right afterwards. And you'll note the distance in the bottom left, which is critical for this topic, only because of what it is. Also, when you go into landing, my goodness, is it extremely sensitive for side to side and up and down angles. So you can really feel those reaction thrusters, so to speak, and the camera it takes a learning curve. And I'm leaving that in because I want you to know what you're going to be experiencing too, unless you've already handled this. So when you do manage to start getting it under control, though, it is nice to have that level of fine-tuning. I think you would start your landing process on this moon by starting lower down. So maybe by, a little bit below the 80-kilometer point, you would actually start this process of attempting to land and do it the right way and such. Because as you can see, it's quite a weird thing. And in general, to me, this isn't very fun having to do this the whole ride down. Unless you had to, it's a place where you can't see the surface. That may be a necessity. So you can see me spinning sideways. I'm still trying to get my bearings over and over again. And then finally I do. So let me jump ahead to that. So through the magic of editing, we're now making our play on the blue wall. And these icons actually start pixelating when you get close to them. probably wouldn't normally be an issue because you're slamming into them at, thousands of kilometers an hour or faster. But when you go slow, it is kind of funny. It's gonna sound silly now, but I was attempting to try to go between the blue markers, hoping that each one had its own little collider system or something. Obviously, that's not going to be the case, but that's what I was thinking. And as I move forward, I'm slowly attempting. You can see it, I'm moving at very slow speeds and kind of pulsing my engines. This game does like when you pulse, so you'll notice, at least I feel like there's a difference in reaction of the vehicle. So if you're going too fast, it's very hard to first obviously slow down, but also side to side it reacts very, very violently. It wants to go sideways. But if you're going slow enough and you're in 0G or very low G, of course, like this, it's quite happy. It will quite happily handle that. So if you're going like 4 kilometers an hour, 12 kilometers an hour or something like that, which is, at least for this game, that is extremely slow. It will let you easily keep track of what you're doing. And just a small tip to anybody who's like me, that's kind of a little twitchy with your laser high DPI gaming mouse. Take your hand off the mouse. Once you have it straight up and down, just tap the W and S keys. That's what I recommend. I learned that the hard way. So you watch this so you don't have to learn it the hard way in some cases, I suspect. And that's great. I hope you got some stuff out of this. Anyway, when you go through, you'll note that it is not going to kill you, and you'll also note in the bottom left, we're at 81 kilometers. 80 is the Deathwall. So the Deathwall is not the Deathwall, at least in this case, on this patch, in this location. Your mileage may vary, but we are through it. I don't know that yet until I hit the V key and check the other camera angles. Here we go. That it is actually, we're passing right by it. And it is clearly not meant to be seen from this side. It's pixelating and such, but that's fine with me. Because we're on the good side now of this location. So this is the type of, when I switch back again, this is the feel you will see, the view you will see, the feeling of attempting to land on Earth's moon. And this is what we have. Now you'll note in the bottom left corner we're at 80.9 kilometers. So you have a very small 1 kilometer window that you can simulate this, practice this, do different things. And if you go past 80, it will do stuff. But if you stay above 80, you're good. Even 80.2 and 1 and such. So there it is. And you can get your shots in. You can go and take pictures to your heart's content. Obviously, if you angle up, you'll get the blue, but if you stay at the correct angle, you will not see the blue. And if I was to wager, I think that the 5th update will be landing on the moon. There have been some sneak peeks that they have posted up from the team that have shown or stuff that's going to be put on the moon, and you have seen the preview. You can go check out the Extractor sitting right in the showroom. So I'm predicting some type of, maybe not full-on habitation, but something you can go stand inside, as well as your Extractor as an early thing. I don't know if there'll be ground vehicles that early, who knows, but hopefully a small base that has those smaller things and some cleared out ground. This is might be a surprise for some, but you can fill in craters. So I strongly suspect that there'll be some flattened out terrain that is easy to land on, as long as you're near the marked base locations. And the markings are already in, like you saw with Holster Station versus the Earth versus the moon around the Earth. These locations all have markers. So it would not be crazy to have another marker or two for different bases that you can go visit on Luna and check out. This is what I was talking about with the blue. If you get at certain angles, you can get your shots in. So if you're looking for some nice screensaver, desktop material and such to take shots of, it's It's pretty damn cool looking. The servers are not exactly consistent, though, in some cases. Don't be surprised. Like I said, half hour, you'll probably get consistency. Or if you're in the off hours of different time zones, you'll probably be fine. And then eventually you will have an issue where the server crashes. Especially as I was recording this, it was during the time period where the update just came out a few hours earlier. So do bear that in mind. So, this is what we're dealing with. It's very exciting to me as a project. It is going places to me. I don't know how big they're trying to make it. Obviously, this is just based in the solar system. So Earth, Mars, Mercury, Venus, etc., etc., you know, and then the further out solar system past the asteroid belt, I'm very curious how they're going to handle that. I think the testing of the extreme high speeds is probably showing what they're going to do. Is certain ships will have the means to go all the way out there, or maybe all ships, but it will require an immense amount of fuel and such, and certain considerations to get out to those outer solar system locations, because the distances are just so much more vast. I'm not quite sure how they're going to handle that. Notice I'm back in flight mode, so I'm not in landing, and I'm just kind of having some fun testing this out to see what I can do at higher speeds underneath the soft wall, above the hard wall. Once again, close to the location, testing some orbital testing, and then I think in a second it cuts me off. So this is an example of what you're dealing with right now. Feel free to give it a shot. Again, it's in the description. I have nothing to do with the developer. I think they have a wonderful little startup they got going on. It's all free, so to me, this is the type of stuff that's wonderful to see from indie developers. All right, that's all I got. Thank you for coming along on this one. Again, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and thank you to my subscribers for sticking around. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. I'll gladly answer. For the little bit I know about things. Take care.